Welcome back to the channel, y'all. Today is May 11th. It has been almost exactly 2 weeks since I saw my brand new gastroenterologist, and I had high hopes for that appointment, even though that gastroenterologist essentially told me there are no more tests he's willing to do, there is nothing he can do, was what he told me. He did give me some really good insight into my symptoms, and he gave me an answer about my stomach problems that is satisfying to me. And out of that appointment, I ended up actually getting a referral to cardiology because of a lot of the issues that I've had with my blood pressure being extremely low, fainting when I stand, seeing like dark spots when I go from seated to standing, and basically feeling super faint, lightheaded, and dizzy from that, either fully fainting or almost fainting. I've had issues with like blood pooling in my hands when I walk, just all kinds of different issues that I've had. And what really prompted the cardiology referral was not just those symptoms, but also I've had these weird racing heart rates when I'm sitting down, honestly, sometimes at work for like hours on end. And it's not just racing heart rates, but it'll be kind of surges and all these weird kind of feelings. And so that kind of freaked me out. And so I was like, okay, I need a cardiology referral. And I honestly was planning to not talk about the cardiology aspect at all on this channel. I was planning to keep that private because this channel is mostly about my stomach and my GI issues. But we have learned today in the cardiology appointment that potentially there is a cardio aspect that's going on that could be affecting my GI system. So I'm going to get into that, but I'm going to start with what my experiences was like at the gastroenterologist on the 20th of April when I saw my new doctor, and then I'll get to the cardio part and just give you guys the full update on everything that I'm doing with my diet, with everything. I do want to go ahead and say that if you watched my last video, I was super excited about this book and I was convinced this book was going to cure me. I want to kind of apologize if that made anyone feel like I was saying that gastroparesis or intestinal dysmotility or any of those things are curable, because they're not really curable, and I know that intellectually, but with how much I've been through, I just have had this kind of chronic mental problem of accepting that the conditions that I've been told that I have aren't curable, and the fact that I might have to be on Linzes for the rest of my life and things like that. I just have been desperate to cure myself. As you've seen on this channel, a lot of what I've documented is honestly the mental and emotional frustration because I've never really had a totally clear diagnosis, and I've never had a doctor tell me exactly what I needed to hear to understand my full conditions. There has been a tendency to go towards any alternative healing thing that I can possibly find, any data idea that I can possibly find, and try to convince myself that I can fully heal myself. And a lot of that has been due to social media influence and seeing a lot of things on social media of people claiming they've healed their gut issues, and not just social media, but friends and family members as well who claim that they cut out this certain food or did this certain thing and they healed their gut issues. And I feel kind of jealous of that, and I end up gaslighting myself and blaming myself and just telling myself that if I just do one more thing, then I'll get better. If I just try one more diet or try to cut out this food, I'll get better. And that's not true. That's not accurate. I do, however, know that there are things that I can do to improve my situation, and I'm still learning about those things, and I have learned about some of those things, and I'm gonna keep doing those things, but there isn't a cure for gastroparesis. There's not a cure for intestinal dysmotility. There is a cure for SIBO, and I did cure my SIBO, but curing SIBO is very complicated. I can't really give any exact information on what I did to cure my SIBO, but I do want to make some videos about that. The SIBO series is coming. That aside, I'm no longer following the advice from this book, although I did learn some helpful things from it. So this book kind of prompted me to cut down a lot on the amount of sugar I was eating, and I've noticed that if I do eat less sugar and less processed foods, I do generally decrease my nausea a bit. Sugar seems to be a really big nausea trigger. I had to stop drinking kombucha because it's a big nausea trigger. So I did take some good stuff from this book, but I'm not continuing with it. I'm not continuing with any certain diet. I am not trying to heal myself with diet at all. I'm still taking some supplements, which I'll talk about later. I am really working hard on being free from thinking that it's my responsibility to do some perfect diet to heal myself. And I'm working on accepting what is and just being happy with the foods that I can eat. One of the problems that I have is I want things to be very routine, and I want things to be the same every single day. And because of how variable my symptoms are, I cannot eat the same every single day, and I can't rely on the same foods every single day. And there's been this big struggle within me to find the perfect way to eat every day that will just work every day. And that that just doesn't exist. And I need to accept that. And I need to accept that both ways. Like, there are foods that I cut out in the past that never needed to be fully cut out, like fruit or vegetables that are hard to digest. I didn't need to fully cut out those foods. I could have just said, some days I can eat fruit and it is painful, but I can actually eat it. And there are other days when eating a piece of fruit sounds so painful and miserable that I can't eat a piece of fruit. And I need to be okay with that dichotomy and just kind of listen to my body more and eat what I can eat when I can eat it and don't eat what I can't eat and just listen to my intuition. And some days that might mean, like today, I've had a lot of nausea and a lot of vomiting. So I've had almond butter and white rice. And that's what I've eaten today. And a tiny little bit of beans. That's what I've eaten today. And I've been super nauseous and I've thrown up all those things, whereas a few days ago, I was eating some fruit and some potatoes and a variety of things. And it's just different day to day. And that's been hard to accept. And I think that struggle has been shown a lot on this channel, perhaps to my detriment of people's perception, because I think people think that I give up on things that are working, but really a lot of times when I show a diet working or something working, I'm just documenting a period of good days. And then a lot of times what isn't shown or what gets shown later is, those good days ended and I physically couldn't keep doing the diet that I thought was working, because no one diet's going to help me. No one set of eating is going to help me. Listening to my body and changing what I'm eating day to day without fully making all these rules is what's going to help me to be more normal and to accept this more. And I really have been focusing on all these concepts a lot since seeing my new gastroenterologist, because I will be honest, it's very clear to me that I was passed over to him to be told that there was nothing more that gastroenterology could do. And not even nothing more they could do, but nothing more they were willing to do. My old gastroenterologist that I had is the second one that I've seen. So the first gastroenterologist that I saw was about 2 years ago in May of 2021. Then I saw the second gastroenterologist, which you've seen a lot of videos of posted on this channel, videos of my appointments with her, recordings, and also videos of my appointments with her 2 physician assistants, recordings and discussions of it on this channel. I'll link those videos below. If you've seen those videos, you will know that my second gastroenterologist did do a lot of extensive testing on me, and she did dig into my issues. She gave me the SIBO diagnosis. She gave me the intestinal dysmotility diagnosis. And we got there through tests and things like that. So I do appreciate everything that she did, but she did also overpromised me a lot. And I think in that way, she kind of dug both me and her into a hole a little bit, because when she first met me, she was like, we'll do all these tests and we'll figure out what it is and we'll make you feel better. I know it, we're gonna make you feel better. Yeah, that's reassuring in a way, but it can also be really frustrating when a doctor overpromises to you and then doesn't really have the ability to say I was wrong, I overpromised, and she really couldn't do that. And so yeah, she overpromised, and then when I got the SIBO diagnosis, after all the tests and all that came out of it was the SIBO diagnosis, she overpromised again and was like, once you cure SIBO, you're gonna feel great. And then I didn't. And then we got the then we figured out the intestinal dysmotility. And once again, she was like, once you clear your constipation, you're gonna feel great, you'll get on lenses, you'll feel great. And I didn't really feel great. And I think at that point was when she really started to pull back from me a little bit, because she realized that she had overpromised and we were kind of both in this hole of like, I'm supposed to feel better and I don't, and in this frustration. And I can say that because she changed the whole way she interacted with me as I kept getting worse and as she realized that she really didn't have any more ideas, because anytime I messaged her, she would not respond. And it used to be that last year in 2020, before I got a lot worse with my weight dropping, all that kind of stuff, she used to respond to all my messages with like paragraphs of responses to all my messages. And then she just really stopped responding. And if I messaged her anything, any thoughts, she would just have her nurse respond. And she was kind of done with me. That was kind of sad that the person that I really trusted, I had a lot of faith in her. I know that I was frustrated with her a lot because I wanted more solutions than she was able to give, but I did respect her a lot. And she did try every test she could think of, every medication that she could think of to help me. Then she brought me to this third doctor who I saw in person on April 28th. And it was clear when he walked into the room that Robert and I were in, because Robert, my husband, came with, that he was not going to do anything to help me. And that was totally clear from the moment we started talking. And I'm not saying that to try to talk bad about him. That is just how he was and how he intended it to be. He sat down and he was like, okay, what do you want from me? Tell me your story. Tell me about you. I've read all your charts. I know everything that you've been through. Tell me about you. And he was very like flat affect. So I told him everything about me, my whole story. I summarized it a bit, but all the things that I've been through with tests and various different theories, official diagnoses, and just theories, curing the SIBO, but struggling with it for a long time, different things that I've tried. And he listened to everything, and his response was, I don't really see a path forward for anything that anyone at gastroenterology can do for you. He said that everything that my prior doctor had done was what he would have done. Every medication that she suggested, every test that she's done is what he would have done. And he said that he has no other things that he thinks are warranted. It's weird because he was cold to me, and he did say, you need to accept there is nothing that can be done. And he did make me feel a little silly talking about my symptoms, and even talking about my weight loss and the extensive amount of pain that I have and the extensive amount of loss of appetite and vomiting that I have. And he made me feel silly. He was kind of like, in a way, his tone and the way he took the information in was kind of like, why are you complaining about this? You know, you're still getting through the day, you're still working. So in a way, like, his tone made me feel like he thought that. He didn't say it out loud, but I could tell that he made me feel like, why are you bringing this? It was tough love, but it was tough love that I was ready to hear, and I'll tell you why. So there's a certain level of illness that doctors really, like, there's a certain place that I'm in where I do have pain every day. I have nausea most days. I have thrown up 5 times today. I legitimately have thrown up 5 times today. And I have times where my pain is, like, just a week ago, I came to work and my pain was so severe that even after just drinking water and taking my supplements, I violently threw up everything in my stomach. And it was just water and supplements, but it was so violent, so painful. And that was a week ago at work that the first thing I did was vomit, and I'd only had water. I feel like there's a lot that I go through every day in terms of my symptoms, but the truth of the matter is that it's really not severe enough that any kind of extreme intervention can be done or should be done. I do not want any extreme intervention. I don't want to suffer, but at the same time, I'm not ready for and I don't need anything that they would do if I was a lot sicker. So I'm in this place where I need to accept where I am, and I need to get out of this mindset of everything's an emergency, everything is so bad. And hearing a doctor say, I need to accept this, and hearing a doctor say you need to live with this, and hearing a doctor say you need to realize this isn't an emergency, this isn't something that we need to keep investigating, it really affected me in a positive way. I know that sounds crazy, and I know that there are people in the chronic illness community who will say, don't give up, keep fighting, you should push back. But the reality is, this is the 3rd gastroenterologist that I've seen, and this is, I don't even know how many number of doctors that I've talked to this about, right? Because, you know, I've talked to multiple nutritionists, I've talked to multiple primary care doctors, I have talked to emergency room doctors, I've talked to PAs, like, I've talked to the gamut of doctors that I could for these gastroenterology issues, and I've even gotten second opinions from doctors that I'm not even seeing, like friends who are doctors I've talked to, family members who are doctors I've talked to. I've just talked to as many people as I can to get medical opinions, and the reality is that I'm at a place where I need to accept it and also accept that I can't fix it. It's really tough when symptoms that I've been told are emergency symptoms are not. Like, when you get to that place in a chronic illness where you're like, I'm having symptoms that feel like I'm really sick every day, but I need to realize this is normal. Like, that day when I got to work and immediately puked my guts out, it was so violent and so much vomit that I thought, do I have a stomach bug? And then I realized, no, this is just a normal thing. I've thrown up all afternoon today. Not all afternoon, but like after I ate lunch, I threw up a whole bunch of times today. And that's just normal. Like, I just throw up and I feel nauseous and I get on with my life. And for someone that doesn't have a chronic illness of this variety, before my illness, I would never have my guts out at work and then just been like, I'm gonna go keep working. But that's a regular thing that happens to me for a couple of years, honestly. I started the vomiting in 2021, and prior to the true vomiting starting, I had months of regurgitative episodes prior to that. So, like, I've had this issue for a long time. And the doctor gave me some insight as well into why my gastric emptying scan was, why I could be so sick, and why it's also possible that I either have intermittent delayed emptying or mild delayed emptying, because it didn't show up on the gastric emptying scan. And as I've discussed in past videos multiple times, and I'll link those below, it is totally possible to have severe gastroparesis, as in severe delayed emptying, and to have a normal emptying scan. It's totally possible, and they've shown it in research, even in high percentages of that category of person. So you can have all levels of delayed emptying and still show up normal on a gastric emptying scan. That is totally possible. But there's also a world where my gastric emptying scan that I had over a year ago now, so honestly, that could be reevaluated, but for the reason I'm about to tell you, my doctor said that he didn't want to do another emptying scan. And I'm tired of tests. I'm tired of radiating my body. I've done CT scans multiple times. I've already eaten radioactive eggs. I've had a ton of x-rays. The thought of eating radioactive eggs and getting more radiation into my body to potentially get a scan that doesn't even give us that good of information doesn't excite me. And so I was fine with being told that I should have another emptying scan, that he wouldn't approve it. And I know that I could have pushed for it, but given what he told me about what he thinks could be going on with my stomach and what sounds to me like like an accurate description of what's going on with my stomach, there is no test for it and there is no treatment for it, and a gastric emptying scan is not going to show what I'm about to tell you. He was like, I know that you do have delayed emptying symptoms at times, because I know that I have delayed emptying symptoms at times because I have times where I will vomit up food totally undigested that I ate 6 or 8 hours prior. That is delayed emptying. The food is in my stomach and it's undigested for that many hours. That's delayed emptying. And I have that happen to me. I also have times where I'm nauseous for many hours after eating a single meal or food. So that is another delayed emptying sign. But at the same time, I have symptoms that aren't as typical of pure delayed emptying or more classical kind of gastroparesis where it's more chronic slow emptying. From what this doctor said, I do think it's probably more likely that I have intermittent delayed emptying, or, periods where I have delayed emptying, like, for instance, weeks where I feel super nauseous and vomity all the time, and then weeks where I'm not as nauseous and vomity, because that totally happens, and you've seen that in my videos where I discuss good weeks and bad weeks, and I have, for over a year, and it can be confusing. It's like, why are my symptoms so all over the place? And then it makes sense when I learn that he thinks that given how prominent my pain is, that my primary stomach malfunction is not actually the delayed emptying. So he thinks my primary stomach malfunction is a problem with gastric accommodation, and so my stomach is struggling to receive food and liquids, and the muscles are not functioning properly to receive the food and the liquids that I'm consuming, which would explain why a lot of times I have a lot of pain in the mornings when I'm just waking up. My stomach is empty, theoretically, and you should think that that'd be the best time for me to eat, but a lot of times what I consume in the morning is the most painful and the most nauseating and the most forced, and that could be because my stomach is like accommodating something for the first time in the day, and it's like having distraction. It's really painful. And that would also explain, why my most prominent symptom is pain and gastric muscle spasm. He thinks that my really severe pain, and I think as well, is the muscle spasms, which I've discussed before, but something that I didn't know before talking to this doctor, and this doctor is very experienced, and he does specialize in upper GI issues and endoscopies, so it makes sense that he would know these things that I could never learn in my research, and that's part of the value, I think, in not relying on self-diagnosis and research, because not only are medical professionals important to, testing and treatment, but also it's really important to talk to a doctor about things because they have experience and they've seen a lot of things and they can tell you things with their knowledge of having gone to medical school and having treated patients for years. This guy has way more experience than any gastroenterologist that I've seen thus far. He has all this knowledge to tell me something that I didn't even know was possible. So in my research, I had seen discussion of gastroparetic muscle spasms as part of a struggle to accommodate food and causing severe pain. And I had wondered for a long time if my severe pain, the severe spasmy feeling pain, started in 2021 and that's what prompted me to see that first gastroenterologist that I saw. So it's been over 2 years of this spasmy severe pain, and then my general pain with eating that's really upper GI focused has gotten worse and worse since that incident in 2021. In my research, I had only seen that spasmy pain could be from severe gastroparesis, but what this doctor was telling me, and what makes total sense now, is that my primary condition is the problem with gastric accommodation and problems with like my stomach processing the food and like the spasms from it. And he was like, that's probably your primary condition, and then if you have any delayed emptying, that's secondary from the primary condition. In a way, it's not quite gastroparesis, but it's also not quite not gastroparesis. The cause of it can vary wildly, but a lot of times whatever causes it is causing the nerves in the stomach to malfunction and the musculature of the stomach to malfunction. And what can ultimately lead to the delayed emptying are things like the pylorus not functioning properly, or the pylorus being too tight, or the stomach having like a pseudo obstruction type of situation where it thinks there's an obstruction but there's not. Another thing that can cause delayed emptying is the stomach not being able to like chew the food, because the stomach does break down and chew down food to get it before it can empty the food. And so if there's an impairment in that aspect of the stomach, kind of the chewing aspect of the stomach, then that can delay emptying as well. And there are all these different kind of nerve malfunctions and muscle malfunctions that can cause the actual action of the delayed emptying. And it appears that I have some sort of nerve communication muscular dysfunction that is causing this problem where my stomach is struggling to accommodate whatever food or liquids I'm putting in. And so it's either causing me intense pain whenever I eat anything, even water, even foods that should be safe for a gastroparesis person. I'm having even foods that should be safe if my primary issue were delayed emptying cause me a lot of pain. Like the liquid diet can cause me pain, water causes me pain, etc. Because anything going in my stomach, it's struggling to accommodate it, and it's like just freaking out, and then sometimes causing these spasms spasms, which can cause me to vomit and stuff like that. So it is a muscular nervous dysfunction in how my stomach actually works. So in a way, it's really adjacent to gastroparesis, but I think medically they would probably categorize me as having functional dyspepsia, which really doesn't tell us anything and is like the IBS of the stomach. But I think if it were to be like a diagnosis, it would be functional dyspepsia because the gastric emptying scan was normal. So basically, if you have upper GI issues and you have a normal emptying scan, they're going to tell you a functional dyspepsia, even though functional dyspepsia could mean so mix. It really could. It's kind of the IBS of the stomach. So I will say that I've been on the Desperation for a while, and it has really not consistently helped my gastric pain at all. Nothing has. My symptoms are all over the place. So some days are better with pain, and some days are worse with pain. Some days are a little better with nausea, and I can eat more on those days and just push through the pain. If I'm having less nausea, I can eat a more bigger variety of food and push through the pain. And then some days are worse with nausea and vomiting, like today. Today's been really bad with nausea and vomiting, so I've had to, limit my food to a very small number of foods. But a few days ago, I was eating a wider variety of foods because my pain was the more prominent symptom. So it's really an everyday evaluation, and I can't just say, this is how I'm eating. I'm following whatever diet, because my diet is varying wildly. What I will say for certain is that ever since this appointment, once it sunk in, I have felt so much more free because I have a way better understanding of what's physiologically going on in my stomach, and having the freedom to not categorize it as just delayed emptying, but the fact that it's this dynamic sort of situation that's more pain and accommodation focused has opened me up a little bit more to not saying, okay, I have to eat the gastroparesis diet, or I have to eat this diet or that diet. It's allowed me to say, I have this diagnosis now that there's no test for, and there's no treatment for, and there's no way to know how common it is or anything like that, and no one can give me any dietary suggestions besides to eat healthfully and to try to monitor my symptoms. So I can eat what I want to eat, and what I really like to eat and the foods that I gravitate towards are not a lot of the animal-based foods that are promoted in this book, or that I've been trying to force myself to eat for months, because a lot of times what I've heard, especially because of the SIBO and being told I had to do low carb and low FODMAP, which you guys know I struggled to stick to, because I don't love animal foods, I don't love meat, I don't like cooking meat, even eggs can be rough at times, and I've noticed that animal foods can make my nausea a lot worse because meat and eggs just seem hard for me to break down. So like collagen and bone broth are easier on me, as you've seen in past videos, but actual like pieces of meat and actual like things like eggs can be tough for my nausea, especially. Not as much for the pain, but a lot for the nausea. So I have noticed that just eating what I naturally want to eat, which is, more fruit, more things like rice, nut butters. I actually can tolerate nut butters. I thought that I couldn't for a long time because in the past I kept trying to eat nut butters on top of yogurt. I've realized in the past couple of months that I do not tolerate yogurt. It makes my pain horrendous. Like, I have not had pain that's been quite as horrendous as it was when I used to try to eat like Greek yogurt and stuff, since I stopped eating Greek yogurt, which has been awesome. So I just don't tolerate yogurt. I don't think I tolerate dairy very, very well. And so eating nut butter on top of yogurt constantly was making me really sick. And so when I eat plain nut butter or nut butter in dates, if you guys have seen me eat, I tolerate it so much better. And so that's been really nice to feel like I tolerate that and to be able to eat nut butters, because those are really small in volume. Nut butters don't cause me pain. Typically they can cause me nausea, but they don't really cause me pain because they're so small in volume, and nut butters are so nutritious. So I'm glad to be able to eat those. I've been eating nut butters. I've been eating avocado. I've been eating majority plant-based. I haven't been eating any dairy. Eating all those big containers of like chunks of cheese, I got really sick of that after a couple weeks of eating a lot of cheese. And I think it was also constipating me, which is not a shocker. Cutting out dairy fully has helped my intestines a lot, like tremendously. I think I should keep with cutting out dairy and then keeping a mostly plant-based diet. My everyday preferences, like I said, rice, beans when I can tolerate it. Beans do cause me a lot of pain, but they're really great for protein and energy and my intestinal motility. I like peas a lot. I have to chew those really well to be able to eat those. Potatoes seem to do really well, so I love plant-based foods. And I do find that even though plant-based foods cause me more pain up front because they're a lot of volume, if I can get myself to eat them, the symptoms from the plant-based foods seem to be less in terms of nausea. But again, I'm not labeling it. I'm not trying to say that I'm vegan again. If you followed the channel for a long time, you would know that I was vegan for 3 years in college, and prior to that, I was a vegetarian for 4 years before that. So plant-based diets are my jam, and I'm not gonna fully label myself vegetarian or vegan ever again, because labels and trying to stick to a strict diet is just so limiting socially and also just mentally limiting. But in my everyday life, in my grocery shopping, ever since finding out this information about what's probably the primary cause of my symptoms, I've been feeling very free. And I don't think I'm gonna make any more videos about following any certain diets or anything like that. I'm just gonna eat what my heart and my body say. And some days that will be a large variety of foods, and sometimes that will be a little bit of nut butter and a little bit of rice, and that'll be the day. It just depends on my symptoms. So I'm no longer trying to look for cures or things like that because there really isn't any. And again, I'm sorry if I implied there are any cures to gastroparesis or intestinal dysmotility. That wasn't me trying to make anyone feel bad or make anyone feel like they should be looking for a cure. That was just my own delusion that I could cure myself, and I need to get out of that and just accept what is and appreciate the other good things in my life, because there's so many good things in my life that aren't about my health, like my great husband, and I love where we live, great place to live, we have great jobs. There are so many great things I need to be appreciating more. So I'm working on acceptance, all that kind of stuff. Now getting to the cardiology piece. So right now I'm wearing a heart monitor, and I'm wearing it for only 24 hours. It has all these, I don't want to like flash you guys or anything, but I do want to show the heart monitor. So it has this like little piece here and these little strings. I'm a little bloated today, but it's all good. So the reason I'm wearing this heart monitor is it's kind of classic. If you have weird heart symptoms, they're going to give you a heart monitor for a while. It's kind of like classic evaluation. So I have this on. In a couple of weeks, I'm getting an echocardiogram. And when I went to the cardiologist, they gave me an EKG to see how my heart was beating. Yeah, so we actually found something at the cardiologist that might be a root cause. Maybe not for the stomach piece, maybe so, but perhaps for my general dysmotility piece, like my intestinal issues and stuff, it may be a root cause. I don't think it's probably a root cause entirely for that kind of stuff, but it could be contributing to why my intestines have been so bad and why my stomach keeps declining. It could be a little bit of like an information about that. So as I mentioned at the start of the video, my sort of weird fainting episodes, issues like that have been happening more often. I've had more issues with like my heart kind of giving me these weird irregular feeling beats, and feeling like at times my heart rate is surging and then slowing and beating weird in my chest, like a rough beat. I have periods where it feels like that. Doesn't happen every day, doesn't even happen every week, but I'll have these episodes of that where it feels really scary. That's been worrying me, and then the fainting and having my vision go black and getting super dizzy and lightheaded when I stand up has been bothering. And something else that has been happening is whenever I get my blood pressure taken at appointments or tests, my blood pressure is super, super low. It keeps coming out that my blood pressure is lower and lower. Like my blood pressure just keeps reading lower and lower whenever I go to the doctor. It's to the point where like whenever someone takes my blood pressure, they will just say to me, "Oh my gosh, your blood pressure is so low. Is it supposed to be this low?" And like go on about it. And today at the cardiologist, they took my blood pressure and it was only 90/50. It was super low. Then when I stood up, they took like a seated and a standing, and the standing one was even lower. It was like 80 something over something, but it was like way lower. I mean, not way lower because like my blood pressure was already so low it couldn't get that much lower, but cardiologist was like, for like a functioning, speaking, talking person, like it probably couldn't get that much lower. And I was like, okay. But then it got down when I stood up even lower to like 86 over or 85 over something. So this cardiologist, I love him officially. I told him that. I told him, "You are the kindest, most affirming doctor that I have seen in this whole journey that I've had." Because he can see my whole medical history at Duke. He can see all the appointments that I've had and everything that's gone on. And I told him, "You are the kindest doctor that I've seen over this whole thing. And you have just touched me in my like heart." And he's a cardiologist. I told him that. And I said to him, "You have been amazing." So this cardiologist knows a lot about dysautonomia because his daughter has POTS. I know a little bit about POTS because I've seen a lot in the kind of online gastroparesis community that a lot of people who have GI dysmotility also have dysautonomia or POTS. And one of you guys actually recommended a whole long YouTube video about the connection between dysautonomia and gastric dysmotility disorders. And I watched the whole thing and I loved it. Thank you, Growing Healthy, if you're watching it this far. And I watched it, I thought it was super interesting. Dysautonomia has not been on my mind heavily because I don't have the typical POTS heart rate kind of thing where like I stand up and my heart races. Because even when I stand up and I feel really dizzy and lightheaded and my blood pressure drops, and even when I faint, I know this isn't super accurate, but I try to take my heart rate and it never seems to be super, super high. Like I see a lot of people that have POTS talking about their heart rate getting to like 130 or higher, and mine doesn't seem to ever hit that like 130 or higher mark. So I haven't thought that I had POTS, and that's the main type of dysautonomia that I've heard talked about. So I thought, oh, I can't have dysautonomia. But this cardiologist talked to me heavily about dysautonomia because he knows a lot about it. And he brought up on his own, he's like, your blood pressure is so low. And the fact that it's lower when you stand up, and the fact that you have all these issues going from seated to standing with all this dizziness, lightheadedness, fainting, all this stuff. And I also have problems standing up just still for long periods periods of time. It's really exhausting to me. It's really tough for me. I need to be kind of moving around and readjusting, or I will just feel so tired and weak just standing straight up. And so he talked about that as well. And he touched on the constipation, and he was like, your extreme constipation could also be related to dysautonomia. And so he said, I don't think that you have POTS because you don't show tachycardia. But given that your blood pressure is doing all these weird things from seated to standing, and given that you have these weird heart kind of episodes that you describe, and given that I also struggle a lot being in the heat, and that really exhausts me and can really exacerbate all my symptoms, he was like, told me, you know, I think that you probably have a type of dysautonomia. He didn't really say what type he thought I had, but he was like, I think that you have a type of dysautonomia, and that whatever dysautonomia is going on with you could be contributing to your gastro symptoms, and also could contribute to why, you know, things like your gastric emptying scan weren't reproducible, because it could be episodic, you know, gastric delay, or episodic different type of things. So right now where we're going with cardiology is just the initial classic testing. So the heart monitor, I don't want to take it off. The heart monitor testing that I'm doing right now. Then they do the echocardiogram, and then I hope I didn't take any of these off. These all seem like they're attached. Okay, cool. Then the echocardiogram in a couple of weeks, and then after that I'll have a follow-up with cardio, and we'll see what that is. Cardio also did blood work on me. I have the blood work results. I just got them. Zoom. So I don't know if you can see this. I'll see it in post, but all these things are not really in the normal range, it looks like. Anyway, so blood results. The doctor hasn't told me what he thinks of the results. Those are just the raw results. So I'm curious to see what the cardiologist says about my results. But that's those results. The last thing that I want to discuss is kind of supplements and other things that I'm doing, and also sodium and how I'm dealing with the dysautonomia now that I know I have it. Or I don't really know that I have dysautonomia. Like, the cardiologist says, this looks like a type of dysautonomia. I think you have dysautonomia. Like, the cardiologist says he thinks that I have dysautonomia, but I don't have an official diagnosis of dysautonomia because I would have to have testing for that. So there's a variety of different tests they can do to officially diagnose dysautonomia, like the tilt table test, which is more for POTS. There's like a sweat test they can do, different kinds of stress tests they can do, even cognitive tests they can do, because this dysautonomia can cause like brain fog and things like that. So there are different tests that can be done, and that would probably be like a next step after I do all these like typical cardio tests, and then make sure that everything's fine, like the way my heart works. Like, they have to make sure that the way my heart works is fine before they go on to these other tests. And it would also be an open question if I wanted these other tests, or if I'm just satisfied with knowing that I probably have dysautonomia, that my doctor thinks that I have it, and going from there. He was super affirming about it. He definitely thinks that I have it. And his like I said, his daughter has POTS, so he knows all about dysautonomia, all the different types of it, and he was just super knowledgeable about it. And I've heard from other people that have gotten dysautonomia diagnoses that, you know, cardiologists aren't always super knowledgeable about it or super into it, but this guy was super into it. Like, all we talked about was dysautonomia at my appointment, which was pretty interesting. But anyway, his main advice was electrolytes. Part of why he went to dysautonomia was because I told him that for the past couple of weeks, I've switched my water completely to water that has electrolyte drink mix in it. I have primarily been using this brand. It has a lot of magnesium in it, more than other brands of electrolyte mix. But my problem with this mix is it doesn't have a whole lot of sodium in it. It only has 400 milligrams of sodium per serving. It's also super expensive, and it's kind of gritty because it has seaweed in it and coconut powder in it. So for like the potassium, they try to use supernatural ingredients, which is great, but it's kind of gritty. So I'm not super into this. I'm probably not going to buy it again. I'm going to use it up, but I'm not going to buy it again. So I have this, but I've been using this in combination with liquid IV, which I used to be a big fan of. But liquid IV tastes so saccharine. Again, it's not as high in sodium as brands that are out now, like newer brands that I'm about to talk about. Liquid IV has all these other additives and things that can be gut irritants, and it also doesn't dissolve in water very well. All the additives in liquid IV lead to it not dissolving in water very well. Whenever I use liquid IV, it never seems to dissolve completely. I have to like keep mixing it up. It's really irritating. So I heard from a friend of mine that LMNT was really good. I'm so glad that she reached out to me about this. But anyway, so I just got a heck of a lot of LMNT. I got Element Citrus, I got Lemon Habanero. The raspberry is the kind that I've tried. This freaking slaps. And what is good about this is they have a ton of sodium in them. So tons of salt. And the raspberry flavor freaking slaps. I have the raspberry flavor in my water right now. I should drink some. I'm getting kind of parched. This slaps. I love raspberry, and it doesn't taste artificial. It tastes like raspberries. It's so good. And then I got more citrus. So I've been doing this. I've been doing electrolyte drinks as my exclusive drink. Like, I have not been having any plain water for the past week to week and a half, and I have had no headaches, which I mentioned to the cardiologist. I have had way less fainting, way less lightheadedness, way less heart beating weird feelings. And so I told that to the cardiologist, that all of these electrolyte drinks that I've been doing have been helping a lot, and they've also been helping with my constipation. Like, I am so delighted that I've actually had regular bowel movements lately. Like, I get up in the morning and I drink one of these with usually 2 scoops of this, but I'm gonna switch to one of these since one of these has more sodium in it than 2 scoops of this. So I'm gonna switch to these tomorrow morning for my morning salt. But I've been getting up, having a bunch of electrolyte drink, and then like 10 or 20 minutes later, I will have to have a bowel movement. And it's amazing because that like never happens, as I know I'm sure you guys with intestinal dysmotility can relate to. So I've been having way better bowel movements ever since getting onto the electrolytes. I told the cardiologist that, and that doing the electrolyte drinks had decreased all my other symptoms, and he was like, that is a huge sign that this is dysautonomia. The fact that like a lot of salt is helping you, that's a huge sign that you have a type of dysautonomia. It has not helped my blood pressure though, apparently, because my blood pressure today at the cardiologist was lower than it's ever been. The fact that like the lower value was in the 50s, that's way lower than it normally gets, and then to be in the 90s and the 80s for the higher value, like yeah, that was really low. The rest of what I'm doing supplement wise is I'm still doing a vitamin every day. I'm taking a daily probiotic. I haven't taken this yet today. It's seed, something that I found on social media that I was influenced by. Once again, I got seed, but so far I like it a lot. It seems like a good probiotic, and I kind of need a daily probiotic, I feel. I just feel like it helps my motility, helps my gut health and stuff like that. So I'm taking seed and I like it, and I'll probably keep taking it. So that's what I'm doing probiotic wise. I'm gonna take this right now. I forgot to take it this morning, so bottoms up. And then the last kind of supplementy thing that I've been doing is I've been doing digestive enzymes. I'm not sure how much these help me, but I have been taking them with my meals sometimes. Not every day, but sometimes I take these. So that's update on diet, update on diagnoses, and diagnosis, more so diagnosis theories and like things we're exploring. Update on that, update on supplements. My goal is to probably drink 4 packets of these a day. And so far today I've had 2 scoops of this, and I've had, these just came in the mail like right before I started filming this. So I've had 1 packet of this, and then when I was hanging out with my friend, she's super into salt, and so she gave me a half a packet of this and some water. So I'm probably gonna try to drink 1 or 2 more packets of this. And I've only tried the raspberry, so I need to try the citrus and the lemon habanero. But I subscribed to this brand because it's way cheaper, and then if I subscribe and also get 4 boxes instead of 3, the 4th box I don't have to pay for, like it's kind of free or part of the bundle. So like when I subscribe and do 4 boxes at once, then this is so much cheaper because it ends up being like $1 a serving. I don't even know how much a serving this is, but this is way too expensive for me. So that's everything I'm doing. I do want to say that none of these supplements or anything that I'm doing are meant to be copied by anyone. This is what personally works for me. None of this is meant as medical advice at all. This is also that my doctors have told me to do, and my own experiences and my own body. So please don't copy me. Please don't think that what is true for me is true for you, because like we are all separate, we are all different. We all have different medical conditions and different medical advice, and this is just what I'm sharing about my experience. But yeah, there is more to come. The next health video will probably be whatever this tells us, and my echocardiogram is not for a couple of weeks, so it may take a while to get that video together because I want to put the results of this and the echocardiogram into one video. This has been a long video. Thank you for watching, and I hope you appreciate the fact that we have some true answers right now. I mean, we have the true gamut of what's going on with me. We know that I have this stomach thing, we know that I have this intestinal thing, and now we know that the dysautonomia could and probably is a factor, and that I need to be drinking as much salt as possible, do these cardio tests, and then potentially get the dysautonomia test. So yeah, thank you for watching. I hope you're still watching, and have a great day, y'all.